What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the RXP podcast, the podcast where four working professionals talk all about their love for movies, TV shows, and video games. My name is Matt, and I'm your host, and I am joined by Alex.
War never changes.
Tiffany.
Hello, hello.
And Yasser.
Hello, little Chimmy. We're so happy that you're part of the RXP family now.
Though he's not ready for prime time, so he's not our fifth chair. But one day he will be our fifth chair.
Not yet.
You guys had a prime opportunity to do the whole War Never Changes, because I knew that was coming at some point during that show. Like, I just knew it was happening, because it's in every game. Yeah, it just had to. So if that has not been a hint enough, we are not talking about chimichangas tonight. We are talking about the Fallout TV show on Amazon Prime. This is a show that's, of course, based on one of my favorite video game franchises of all time, Fallout. And it follows a completely new story in the Fallout universe. We see a bunch of different characters. You may have remembered some of our talks about some multiple protagonists. That's definitely going on here. So we'll talk more and more about that. But this is a spoiler-filled review. We are having a peer review on the Fallout TV show. So if you have not watched it, if you're going to watch it, if you just don't like spoilers, you should run far away, go into your vault, don't come out until Reclamation Day, and this will be here when you're ready for it. And
Love
that's enough. So, to start this off, because we're going to be full spoilers, before we even talk about the Fallout TV show, where are you guys at as far as your baseline with Fallout? Have you guys played the games, peripherally familiar with the games? Have you watched someone else play them? Alex, where are you at?
So I've never played a Fallout game myself, period. So none of the mainline ones, not 76, not Shelter, none of that. But I have had a mix of watching other people play. So I've seen Fallout 4 and Fallout 3 in action, but never played it myself. Okay. And I know like cursory details about the world, right? The obvious kind of like the basic understanding of like where, when does Fallout take place and kind of the, I guess, overarching narrative like moments that typically they have.
Sure. Tiffany, what about you?
I am a brand new girl to the Fallout scene. I know it exists as a video game, and I've seen the Pip-Boy guy online, and I've heard of Nuka-Cola, and that's really it.
Yeah. Vault Boy. You would think it's Pip-Boy, but Pip-Boy is like the watch. Vault Boy is the guy that gives the thumbs up.
Oh, well, then I didn't
But
even
it's
know.
okay, because you're just a baby Vault girl.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I'm new.
You're
Hopefully
just new,
in one of the good
new.
ones.
That's right. Yeah, sir, are you a brand new Vault Boy?
Listen, I'm also a brand new Vault Boy. I have not played even a single Bethesda proper game, period, let alone Fallout.
Really?
Oh, same.
So,
Samesies.
Wow.
So this is like a very big introduction for me into Fallout and just like Bethesda's storytelling in general.
Yeah, there's usually more bugs than there was in the show.
There's a decent amount of bugs in the show.
The rad roaches are right.
Well, rad roaches aside, I was talking about more stuttering bugs from Bethesda. No, so I guess compared to all of you, I would say,
are you
maybe
the
more
overseer?
Of a Fallout veteran. I'm definitely kind of the overseer. It's kind of like
sure. He should have introduced the episode as the overseer today.
I should have. I'm basically Vault 31. You guys are all like the Vault 33 peons, and
you're Bud's bud.
I'm one of Bud's buds. What can I say? I have been a big fan of Fallout. Fallout 3 was my first time into it. I never played Fallout 1, Fallout 2. Peripherally aware of what happens. They are definitely like point click, not something I'm interested to actually play. Would love to see if they get remastered one day. But yeah, never played those. Fallout 3 was my introduction point. Fallout New Vegas, which has way more implications into this show than ever, is probably my favorite Fallout. Fallout 4, Fallout Shelter. I still have yet to play Fallout 76 because in my mind, I just like single player Fallout. But maybe I'll change that. But this show, wow. Like, even if you're not a fan, I think for me, the iconography of everything else, like the Vault Boy that you're even talking about, like, hey, you're familiar with that. Some of these like sights and sounds of everything just made me just love this world that we're stepping into. How did this show work for you all?
Can I just say the first, like, was it like 5 to 10 minutes really grabbed me. Seeing this like weird 50s vibe, America, I like wasn't really aware. There might have been, I might like an explanation of what year it was or something, but I just didn't comprehend it, or I didn't digest it, or I missed it when it came on the screen. But seeing this like birthday party happen, and you understand some tension with the cowboy character, Cooper Howard. Was that his full name? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yep. Cooper Howard. There's this weird tension, and you're just like kind of going through it. You're like, oh, he's sort of like an ostracized person for some reason. We'll probably figure out why. And then the bombs dropping, and then everyone trying to escape, a freaking family getting into their fallout shelter and punching another person in the face. And the moment like that happened, I was like in, because I got goosebumps, and I was so scared for the people. And I was like, am I supposed to care about Cooper? Because, I mean, we're introduced to him, and then I'm like, is this guy even going to survive? Like, I have no idea. I don't know. Or, you know, if he does survive, in what way? And then I just got sucked in.
Yeah.
Vibes were immaculate.
What about you, Alex?
Well, dedicated listeners will remember, you know, this show was amongst my top anticipated media of 2024. And, you know,
unexpectedly.
Long story short, it lived up, you know, to my anticipation. It was,
nice.
Fulfilled the excitement of like, seeing the kind of, you know, scattered behind the scenes photos. People were like, oh, look, here's a, you know, set photo of the gas station, which is like very little in the actual show itself, but it was just like a shot that leaked out. And then just talk about
when that Red Rocket gas station came on the screen, though, I lost my mind because it looks like it's everywhere, right? Even the supermarket is within the games, but that Red Rocket looks exactly like the one that's right outside your first base camp of Fallout 4. Like, it looks exactly the same. There's actually a truck in the same place where Thaddeus sets down his bag, and I'm like, wow, that's just too much detail. Like, that is so good. Like, it makes me love Jonathan Nolan even more that he's like such a fan, because that's gotta be on purpose. Love that.
Oh yeah, obviously, for sure.
Yeah, but it hit all the high notes. I mean, it was something where, you know, you also mentioned it's never something you'd expect me to like bring up, but like kind of seeing those leaked photos and just the idea of saying, right, this is gonna be brand new, you know, inspired by the games, and obviously, as we now know, kind of, I guess, canon alongside the games in terms of its story, and hopefully that carries forward, that it's something where you didn't need to have really any experience to be able to enjoy it. And that's something that I think kind of adds the extra layer of saying, well, this is, I think, kind of targeted people like me, where I know of Fallout and I know kind of what the intended experiences, I guess, but I just haven't played it myself. And this just kind of filled in all of those expectations of like, this is exactly what I wanted. This is, you know, the reason why it was on my list was kind of met with everything, especially the acting, you know, is definitely well done. And most importantly for me, just a well realized setting, because that's really what kept Fallout on my radar, is the idea of this kind of like post-nuclear world type thing, right? And kind of dealing with that. I love the idea, and so this just landed it so well.
What about you, little Vault Boy?
So we're I already forgot the question.
Overall thoughts.
Okay, overall thoughts. So, overall thoughts, I thought it was really well made. I think it was very clear, and I think you can probably attest to this, that like you and Alex were just saying, there's a lot of attention to detail for the fans of the series already. And I think that was pretty apparent when you heard a lot of the interviews from like Jonathan Nolan, who is a big fan of the series, and having Todd Howard be part of the producing of the series, you could tell that like it was going to be true to the game at the very least. But what surprised me the most is that this show stands up on its own. I don't think you need Fallout or need to know of Fallout to enjoy this series.
100% agree.
So that's what was so impressive to me. I wasn't expecting that. And I came out with an experience that was better than I thought it was going to be, personally.
Yeah, I knew I was going to have a good time. I thought that there is such a high risk of leaving new fans in the dust. Like, there are so many Easter eggs that they could have put, which they did put a lot of things in there, things that you might not notice, but they're like small things, like small nods, like that Red Rocket gas station. That got me so excited, but I don't think that unless you knew about that, you probably would never know. And it really doesn't take away from your experience knowing that you're not missing anything. And I feel like that's such a tricky thing to do, because I feel like a lot of these adaptations, there's almost like a wink and a nod straight to the camera, like, hey, all you out there, you know what this is. And then they walk away and you're like, what? Well, I don't know what that is. Like, explain this to me. And I felt like it didn't, like, we were learning about these things. And the cool thing on my perspective is we've never really known, and this is what I kind of want to start the conversation with, which is the story, because we've really never known what happens. Like, we know the bombs drop. We know that the Fallout games, Fallout 3 takes 200 years after the first bombs drop. So that's right around when
the show
Shady
Sands.
Yeah, Shady Sands falls. Like, that's exactly 200 years after the first bombs fall. We don't know exactly why they fall. Like, we've always kind of presumed, and I'm saying we as in me and this rabid fan base. Like, we basically we thought that like the commies just dropped a bunch of bombs everywhere. We had no idea kind of where these bombs came from, what started this, why everybody went to the vaults. Like, we just assumed that it was just kind of like World War III at this point. And so in my mind, this story holds up on its own and it's like an actual meaningful bit of canon that we have been kind of asking for. And you get little bits and pieces, but there's never been something that's been like this explicit of like, hey, okay, we may find world peace, we could still drop a bomb on these people. Like,
for
that
capitalism
was crazy.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think that's what excited me about this show the most, is because this is what I want personally when I see video game adaptations in TV and movies. I wanted to add to the story canon rather than repeat the story. And obviously it's a little bit different with Fallout versus like Last of Us, but I really enjoy the fact that this is going to add to the story for people who have already watched or already played the games. And then for the people that are newcomers, they get to jump into the game with completely additional content that wasn't on the show, where you get to explore the universe and the world even more than you did when you were watching it. So I think this is a perfect way to introduce new people into the series.
Funny you mentioned The Last of Us, because Last of Us has kind of been touted as the best video game adaptation up to this point, which is kind of like the gold standard. In my mind, like, it was great. It was how I experienced The Last of Us the first time. Maddie, not a gamer. It was a perfect adaptation for her because she's never going to play The Last of Us. But she was able to experience that story. And that's great. That's really, really great. For this, Fallout being such a choice-based type game, it's an RPG, it's long, it's, how do you capture that into a story? It made sense for this to be kind of its own thing. What do you think is a better adaptation of video games, Fallout or The Last of Us TV show?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take over the conversation here, but for me, I feel like it's an easy answer because I personally, as a huge fan of The Last of Us, didn't want to watch the series only because it's just literally a regurgitation of the story that I already know and love. And to me, there's no way that they could have done it better. So there is either they're going to meet that mark or they were going to be below the mark. And so for me, I didn't want it to end up being below the mark, and I didn't end up watching it. In this situation, I feel like whether I watched the show if I played the game already or not, I would have wanted to watch this show because it's completely different canon, completely different story, and it adds to my enjoyment, or at least now for me as a new fan, it adds to my want to play the series as a whole.
Tiffany, Alex.
Yeah, I'm like, Alex, you should go. You literally were starting
You guys
to
are just looking
before.
at me.
You were trying to talk, so that I figured you'd go next.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make this too much of just like a comparison thing, right? Because I feel like this should be more focused on
sure.
Definitely not.
Itself.
Yeah.
But I think it shows, as you mentioned, right, the fact that typically like Fallout from its inception has been around, right? It's kind of this stat-based RPG, right? You're kind of speccing into these, aspects of your character, and then you're able to utilize those aspects, right, into controlling kind of your encounters, basically forging outcomes where it's like, oh, I don't necessarily need to be shooting things all the time, right? You can bring about some other, sort of result, right, based on your statistics, right? If your charisma and intelligence is really high, maybe, for example, and, spoilers for Fallout 1, you can just convince the final boss to kill himself. But it's like that type of thing where, when you play something like The Last of Us, there isn't any choice in that game, right? It is a very bespoke story where it's like you are following these two characters' story. Yeah, like it is not your choice of what happens and what does not happen. Like we're going to tell you and you're going to like just enjoy this ride, right? And so having that, right, the adaptation of that being that kind of retelling is kind of the only way you'd want to do it because that's what the original was. And in this case, I feel like with Fallout, they kind of did exactly what it should be, right? Because you can't really model anyone's, playthrough of Fallout, right? Because everyone's going to have these different kind of choices or experiences with how the game's designed, right? As it's more open-ended experience. And so having this kind of just like, let's build to the overarching world type of narrative and then add to it to give you more reason to say, hey, we now explained a lot of things. And then you can like go in for yourself and kind of like see more about, right, these radiated areas and see kind of the, exactly as the title is, the fallout of what happens at your own pace, like with your own stories, makes it just a better adaptation for that perspective in terms of being able to say, listen, we're going to convince you to do the rest of it. Whereas I feel like with something like The Last of Us, that with how gripping that story is, probably most people were satisfied with the right max shows. So like they might not be like, well, if this is the story, I don't need to go play the game, right? It's like, how much is there to like convince you otherwise? So I prefer this adaptation, like I said, it was part of the reason it was on my anticipated list because I knew it was something separate. And so I think there's a lot of strength there to be able to kind of say, hey, whether or not you've played the games, I think you'll enjoy this. And, they succeeded with that.
So I feel like I might have maybe a small hot take to this because both of these games or franchises are games that I never played and honestly will likely never play because they're just not my style. Last of Us because it's a lot of sneak and like scary monsters and I'm not into that. And then Fallout doesn't sound fun unless someone tries to convince me it's like a post-apocalyptic Animal Crossing or something, which it's not. But
it's not. No.
Yeah, so like I mean, if it was that, then I'd be into
Fallout 4.
Fallout 76.
Fallout
76
4's got
actually.
base building.
I mean,
Fallout 76 has even more of it.
I love base building, but
I think you'd like Fallout Shelter, honestly.
Is that the mobile game?
Yeah, but you could also have like PlayStation 5, Xbox. I got like 60% of the trophy or achievements on Xbox.
Okay, well maybe
I think you would dig that actually.
We'll talk maybe after. But for these two types of games, I think they're both very good adaptations. But I'm also the type of person when I hear of a movie or TV adaptation of a property, I'm talking give me that 1-to-1 exacto situation. Like with, for example, the Little Mermaid live action movie. Oh, no, that's a bad one. Let's do Lion King. Lion King live action. Or the fake live action. The Lion King fake live action movie that's just CG version of the animated film. Now, that's very controversial film.
Wouldn't that be like dead action?
I don't know. But basically, I enjoyed that Lion King adaptation to an extent. The movie was almost exactly the animated. Yes, the animals had very stoic facial features because they were trying for this realistic vibe, and obviously lions don't smile. Like, I understand the limitations there, but I understood the vision for it, and I enjoyed a lot of it. I know a lot of people hated it and thought it was worthless. Kind of similar maybe to I'm going back to the Little Mermaid live action. I really enjoyed the Little Mermaid live action. There were, renditions of the songs that were sort of updated a little bit. Obviously, the cast were singing their own thing. They got new songs, whatever. Ultimately, though, a lot of the set pieces were there to the core of the animated. And so I know some people are like, why do you want a one-to-one when you can literally just watch the original? Shut up. I want it. I want it in a different fashion. I want to see
I was about to ask that.
No, I want to see a human person just redo the movie. Mulan live action was a disappointment because that was not Disney's Mulan. That was a Mulan movie, which I acknowledge and recognize, and as a movie it was fine, but it wasn't Disney's Mulan. They literally took away Mushu, they took away the music. Anyway, to go back to Last of Us versus Fallout. I really liked the Last of Us adaptation a lot.
Got it.
And so I would probably say as a linear storytelling situation, I prefer The Last of Us. With Fallout, I admired it as an adaptation because it's showing us some character, 3 different characters' journeys, and I did like that. But also in that world, there's just a lot going on and kind of a lot to keep track of. And there's Paul. I didn't understand the Brotherhood. There were things about it that I just didn't. Yeah. You know what I mean? It wasn't. I mean, I don't need a 20-minute YouTube video to explain to me what the Brotherhood is, but I could have gone to that. But in The Last of Us, it was this contained story. I got enough of the background of what happened. I followed through with some characters, not to say that I can't understand complex storytelling. I read high fantasy. Sure. I get it. Tangent over, I guess.
Yeah, so I actually agree with a lot of what Alex and Tiffany said. For example, what you're saying with the Brotherhood, I think we all can agree with what you said because in general, I think they didn't really dive into the Brotherhood very much. And so I think that was mainly so they could introduce a lot of different aspects of the world without necessarily diving headfirst into every single piece of that universe. So as a result, like you said, there are aspects where you are left with very little information even after the season's over. So definitely can see that perspective. And then I also can see the perspective of why someone would want a one-to-one adaptation. For someone who doesn't watch or want to play The Last of Us, it totally makes sense that you'd want a one-to-one adaptation, right? And so I think it can work no matter what. It just really, the question is what fan base or what target audience do you want to watch your show, right? Because you want to capture the people that haven't played the game, but you also want to capture the people that have played them and want to maybe experience more in that universe because they love it so much, for example. But I would disagree as far as The Last of Us. You were saying that they had to go that direction. I disagree. I think there's a lot of different stories that they could have done with The Last of Us that would have worked great. That was Alex's point. I think Fallout, on the other hand, had to go this direction, like you said, because of the fact that the game itself is so player choice based that you can't really follow the story like you would say in Last of Us. Where Last of Us is an easy decision. You can totally do that if you wanted to. You can't do that with Fallout. So it was kind of the decision was made for them that they would kind of do something else separately to the story of the game, or at least it would have been a lot more difficult if they tried to do a one-to-one. But The Last of Us has a lot of great outside characters that haven't had enough screen time that I think have a lot of opportunity in the future for like films or seasons of the show as well.
I think, like, not to, like, because I definitely agree with Alex's point. I think we can celebrate both of these because honestly, like, Last of Us was awesome. And I think Fallout did really, really well. For me, I just think Fallout, what I loved about this was the story. I just can't get over that I ended up caring about this story, especially because we're seeing so many different adaptations with Star Wars and Marvel where you watch their TV shows and you're like, okay, like I probably didn't need that. Like like this is kind of a waste of 10 hours of my life. This, I'm watching it and I'm like, you know, Maddie asked when she got back from work and she was like, oh, did you finish that Fallout show? Like, should I watch it? And I was like, yeah, you should. You definitely should. Like, before season 2, you should watch this because this is great. Like, I was expecting it to be good because I'm a Fallout fan. I ended up thinking that it was good because the show made me care about the story. Like, I'll be honest, the first episode, great. Episode 2 through 4, I don't know about you guys, I felt it just kind of like stutter a little bit.
Yeah.
And then once we got to episode 5 on to the end, I was like, oh, nope, this is great. This is a really great show. But it almost took a little bit of time to really start caring about these people because it's set up like the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Like, you got like the ghoul, you've got Maximus, you know, kind of just like being a bad boy, you know, killing people, taking their armor. Like, I'm Titus, you know, and then you got Lucy Goosey, just, you know, doing her own thing, just like being completely oblivious to everything. And it took a while for me to actually care about any of them. And once I started to, the show was just over. It was so good. So good.
Yeah, episode 2 was the one where it just swapped over to the scientist first. And you're just like, I'm sorry. I am like so perplexed about, my biggest questions are, how are these, or was these scientists on the upper world, and then they were, how are they not ghouls? How did they not radiate? Are there upper world vaults? Like, how did society survive? And I understand the concept of the bombs not dropping on every inch of you know, the section. But like, once a nuclear bomb drops, like, if there was even, I feel like even just like 4 on the United States would demolish life.
Everything.
Yeah, like, I'm just, granted, you know what, whatever, this is fiction, right? It's a special nuclear bomb that only does an specific radius, and, you know, like, it doesn't impact, there's like an area or several cities in the United States where everyone's fine and radiation didn't really affect them and they live their normal lives or something, but that wasn't explained, and that's where I had the most questions about how people just survived.
There's so many things that we could jump into. In Fallout 3, there's literally a town called Megaton where there was a nuclear bomb dropped on this town or dropped in the middle of this place, right? It makes a crater, but the nuke never blows up. And so civilization builds a town in this crater surrounded by this nuclear bomb, and it like was still like giving off radiation. There was like this cult founded called the Children of the Atom, and they literally worship this bomb that never blew up because it like gave them life. You get a quest later down the road of these people that's like, oh, all that scum of Megaton, you should go there and like blow the bomb up and blow up all these people.
Dang.
And between me and my friend, one of us did it, one of us didn't. And one of us might be a coward, and it's not me. All right.
Jeez.
But it was, you know, like, there's so many instances of that. Like, they kind of try to explain with things like that. But, you know, where the scientists come from, you're talking about the Brotherhood of Steel. You guys probably don't even realize how big of a thing the Enclave is. And like Enclave
don't even know who they
is
are.
Where the scientists came from. And I'm expecting a lot of that will kind of come up in the second season. So they did a lot of kind of like drip, 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 drip. Just like, I'm going to seed all of these new ideas, and then maybe, just maybe, we'll talk about it in season 2. So I feel like there's more to come with that sort of thing. Sure. But yeah, when we got to that initial story, it did kind of come to a stop, and it took a while to really speed up again.
Yeah, I was kind of like, why do we care about these dogs? Like, are these dogs special? And then I'm like, wait, he took away a dog. And I'm like, how did people miss this dog being gone when he's like obviously keeping a log? However, none of my questions angered me. Like, I'm not like, my questions weren't answered. This show is bad storytelling. I'm never watching this again. It was more like, oh, I hope one day when I continue to watch the show, my questions will be answered.
I think the way with, you guys are talking about how like kind of episodes 2 and 4 kind of maybe meandered a little bit, and then we kind of like rocketed towards the end in the back half of the season. I feel like, as Matt, you mentioned the kind of like dripping of the things. I personally like that about the story, with having this kind of like showing you the world, right? Like, obviously life, it's not like life ceased to exist. There's these kind of like different strands of like, you have the, the vault dwellers, as they call them. You have the, I don't think they're called overlanders, but I'll just call them overlanders for the sake of the fact that they live, still outside. And there's these different threads of like existence, basically, right? To be like, right, Lucy's encounter, in Philly, like with the shopkeeper in particular, and having that kind of like very tense thing of like the shopkeeper basically telling her, you're essentially dead meat out here, right? Like, whatever, you did in the vaults, like, you're better off going back to your vault. And so there's this kind of like the antagonism there, like very early on, right? Her being kind of the besides the issue in the vault, right, which sets off this whole journey of her kind of coming to that realization about being like, oh yeah, this is all I knew, but in reality the world functions like this. Like, this is the true kind of way to live life. And the fact that I feel like, right, because of this story, even though we have multiple protagonists, right, and that allows us to get all these different facets of the world kind of delivered to us, it really is like, especially at the end, kind of that Lucy storyline, right? Like, that's where we get the most closure, is kind of saying this was her journey to figure out, or not necessarily figure out, but basically to reach her father, who was taken at the start. And then along the way, right, we get the closure of, right, where did the mom go, the mom's fate, and then reality, like what, like who the dad is, what even was the purpose of vaults 31, 32, and 33, and having this kind of neat closure to that while leaving kind of these open other ideas, right? Obviously, Maximus and the Brotherhood, that like that's going to get fleshed out more. Even and I forget his name. What's the brother, Lucy's brother's name? Norm. Yeah.
I was called him Moises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moises Arias's character.
Yeah.
Even his storyline, right? Kind of having that tendril out there, of what happened to him, and we don't get closure on that. There's just kind of like this very foreboding scene of him looking out into the cryogenic chambers, and we don't get an answer to that. So it's like, obviously there's going to be something there that probably happens in season 2. Hopefully they talk about it. But like, I love these kind of interesting, paths left over to be able to be like, all right, besides the tease that we get at the end of episode 8 of obviously where the story's heading immediately, we have so many other things we can get into. And like, this is something where I'm like, man, this could go for like 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons. I feel like it's like ripe with so much to dive into that's just beyond Lucy's story, right? Even though I love Lucy as a character, because especially the Super Duper Mart episode, just like that being her turning point of going from like vault dweller to being like, okay, I can't act like that anymore if I want to survive, type thing. But like having her kind of main arc being done, I'm ready to like move on to be like, okay, what else is out there? Who else do they have to deal with? Who else is surviving? Especially Coop's character. God, love him. Love Walton Goggins.
Yeah, I actually agree with all of you that it did start off pretty slow, and then it really started gearing up towards the second half of the season. I felt like in the first like 3-4 episodes, I was like, I'm just going through the motions here. It's good. I'm enjoying it, but it's not like I'm excited to watch the next episode. And then the second half of the season happened, and I was like, this is amazing. I'm really enjoying my time with this show. And I think it's a mix of what everyone else said already. Jonathan Nolan, he and his brother, they're both known for not really over, they're not going to have over exposition in their movies and their shows. They're going to drip feed you story. They're going to slowly give you information as you progress through their show or their movie. They're not going to just try to throw too much information at you all at once. And I think typically that's a pretty good strategy because you can easily overwhelm someone with a universe this big with so many different factions. If you try to explain everything, everyone would probably get lost within the first couple episodes. Mm-hmm. So for me, I kind of knew that going in and kind of just expected that slow drip. But overall, I thought what I really liked about the second half of the season is they really started leaning into the like comedy of the games.
Yeah.
Where like the second half of the season I thought was just incredibly funny, just like throughout. They added so much cool comedy throughout like this serious drama show that I thought was like a nice little twist to like your typical drama like Westworld or whatever else. So I really enjoyed it. And I am pretty excited about some of those cliffhangers that Alex was talking about that they're going to leave for future seasons.
That's funny that you brought up Westworld, considering like, you know, Jonathan Nolan did work on that
right.
with his wife and everything. And I feel like I saw inspiration or like just some similarities in the Wastelands with the way how Westworld went. Did you guys buy the romance between Maximus and Lucy? I didn't. I was like,
I thought it made sense in some ways because both of them are just like so like they've just never experienced relationships at all. Like Lucy is coming from the experience of just having sex with her cousins. And Maximus is just like, he doesn't even know what an erection is. So like these guys are just like both so clueless, and then they just met each other randomly.
To everybody I hear, you know, not me, but
honestly,
you know,
the way that
so
he
you get
described
swollen and then it pops.
That was hilarious. The way that he described it. I don't know. I thought that was sort of just like, oh, they're just the two main characters, so they're just gonna make them be interested in each other. Like, honestly, that's the way that I felt that relationship evolved.
So you felt like it was kind of forced?
Yes, I felt it was forced. I
don't know, because I feel like they built up Lucy to be that trusting person, right? Like her vault was all about order and trust, and so like Maximus being the kind of like only real person she met on the surface, you know, beside like obviously like meeting Coop, he is not a nice person, you know, he's like, and so having having that being the only other real kind of personal connections he's had besides the scientist who told her to saw his head off, that she didn't really have anyone she could like that she could have to trust. And so like Maximus like helping her out the whole time, I'm like, oh, based on her idealistic vault, like way she was nurtured and raised, it made sense she would become so infatuated with like the one, like the literal knight in shining armor, that
the
like,
one nice guy,
that helps her out type thing. And like that's the naivety of the situation, right? It's like she literally doesn't know otherwise, and like that's like the kind of idea right behind all the vaults, where it's like every vault is its own experiment. So that's like, oh, if everyone was good natured and willing to help each other, it's like this is how they would act type of thing.
I will say I don't really know how I feel about the whole romance thing. I think that Maximus as a character was kind of like the weakest part of this show, in my opinion. I think the goal was awesome. I like, honestly, Walton Goggins can do no wrong anyway, but still, like, his flashbacks were awesome. Like, Lucy is great. I think she's a great showrunner. I think without the ghoul, though, like, that story just does not get told the way that it needs to be told. I think that everything was super compelling in, like, the previous 200 years ago, to the same point of any time that I was seeing him with actual skin on and
a nose.
You were like, let's go.
I was like, let's go. We're going to figure out more stuff. Lucy, every time she was on the screen, great. I see Brotherhood of Steel. I'm like, uh-oh. Please tell me it's Thaddeus. If it's not Thaddeus, not interested. Like, Thaddeus.
For real?
But we get more power
Thaddeus?
armor.
You were into Thaddeus?
I enjoyed Thaddeus because here's my crazy idea. What if, like, I know he might turn into a ghoul, but I think it would be hilarious. There was a companion in Fallout 3 that turned into a super mutant. And so super mutants are these big, like, gargantuan. They look like Hulk, but they're kind of like talk like Smart Hulk. Like, they could speak full sentences.
Oh.
And usually their personalities will match, like, may not match like what they sound like, because they're all going to sound really tough, but then they could be like, I love flowers, like, I love gardening, and like, it is just like, it adds to this like stupidity of Fallout, which is like the main reason that I love it, and probably like what Yasser's talking about, the second half of the TV show. I don't know if he's going to turn into a ghoul. Maybe he does turn into a ghoul, but I think that would be awesome. Just having his personality in this just like monstrous form would be the most hilarious thing.
That would be funny.
I mean, he was like a golden retriever boy, which is more
So
interesting to watch than like
his foot. Gnarly.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think I agree with both Tiffany and Tiffany and Matt that Maximus and that no, you just didn't bring it up. Sorry. But I agree that that like Brotherhood Maximus storyline is probably the weakest part of the show. But I do think it's probably because it's just the most neglected out of all the different stories that they were trying to juggle. There wasn't enough time. I did think some of the weirdest parts were also part of the Brotherhood storylines. Like that bald guy, he's just like, for a second he was gonna kill Maximus, and then like 30 seconds later he's like, I'm gonna knight you. You're gonna be my sidekick. It's like you just thought that he was a traitor. What is going on here? Mm-hmm. And then
Giving
Maximus
big,
just like
Anakin Skywalker and Palpatine vibes. It's like, you don't need the Jedi. You need power.
Yeah, but like bipolar. Yeah. And then Maximus is just like he tells his secrets at like the worst times. It's like, what are you doing? Like, first of all, he tells his squire at the worst time what his like actual name was and like what the whole situation actually was. And then like in the middle of them preparing to take on the final boss lady on the last episode, he's telling his friend like, oh, I'm gonna leave and go live in a vault. It's like, yo, there's 3 people around you that could hear you easily. How are you saying this right now?
Yeah.
But overall, I do agree that they're probably like the weakest link of the different storylines that we have so far.
I do think that maybe personally I struggle with the characters with naivety. Like, you know, I'm not saying I lived a hard and gristled life, but I'm pretty, like, I am very wary and have a lot of distrust of the general public. I don't know what that says about me, but that's just how I am. So, like, watching characters that haven't learned that the world is can be a cruel and hard place, it's just hard to watch. And also, as a woman, watching Lucy almost do the whole like, I went off to college and I fell in love with the first boy I met, like that to me is like, oh girl, oh no, honey,
don't do that.
Makes it like harder to late from your perspective.
Yeah,
right?
well, I'm just like, oh no, we shouldn't do that. Like, that's not, or that's a life lesson that we should just avoid. You know, like
I felt that same thing, and when she went to Vault 4, and they're like, oh, what's your experiment? Because, like, they have figured it out.
Yeah.
And she's like, what do you mean? Like, no, it was a perfect place. And they're like, you being naive does not give you an okay. Like, this does not give you a pass. And I felt the same way. I was like, thank you. Like, she's just not getting it. Because for me, like, that's the best part about Fallout is whenever I found a vault, I was like, let's go. This is going to be like 30 minutes, maybe an hour, where you're going in there and all you're figuring out is what happened. Like, what is it? Is this like an experiment where there's just children? Is this an experiment where they turn everybody into super mutants? Is this an experiment where they just have one guy that keeps cloning himself and it's called the Vault of Gary? And it's just a bunch of Garys, and then like, so they're like doing logs, and they're like, I think Gary is trying to usurp my power. I'm going to kill Gary. And then like other people are saying they're going to kill Gary. So all the Garys killed each other. But then you find a Gary, like there is ridiculous vaults.
One Gary
in Fallout.
trolled them all.
like these are just social experiments. That's all they are.
Which
and
is so
I think
scary too.
that does, knowing now what we know,
Mhm.
like 33 and 32, they were made to be ruled. And so like maybe her being that naive was the experiment. Like to make people just like her smile. Like honestly, Norm should have been the main protagonist in this show because he's the only guy that's actually thinking for himself and thinking,
yes,
that makes no sense. Why are we just accepting this? And so I'm totally there with you.
I'm also like really kind of confused about how like, but okay, we learned about Bud, and like he's like,
Bud.
but you know he's making a managerial leadership program or whatever. How did Bud not know that Vault 32 was compromised? Right? Or
Yeah.
are we supposed to wait? Hold on though. Are we supposed to believe that the massacre in 32 happened right when 33 was inquiring with 32 about getting a
No, it
husband?
happened before.
Yeah, it happened before, right? It happened in the past.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
how did they think they had open comms with 32 when 32 has been in disarray for at least a decade?
This is like classic upper management. You know Bud is a bad manager. He's not
just-
understanding.
Yeah.
He's like, they're not checking in. Our
Half
one-on-ones
of
have been
his-
They're not
postponed
Half of
every
his
time.
underlings are just dead.
The whole
and he's like
time-
stuck behind the broom.
Yeah, the
He's
whole
like,
time
"Oh,
he
I'm
didn't
almost
know
there."
that's where he was. That's why he didn't know anything.
Because he's been stuck in that one, and he hasn't been having
He's
comms.
been stuck in the hallway because of the fallen broom for like 100
Can we
years.
talk about though? He had that syringe and he's like, hey, hold still, just 1 second.
Yeah.
He's like, that killed me. Absolutely.
You'll never
killed
find
me.
out. Oh, he's gonna find out.
Yeah.
His don't go in there and turn on the lights and look across the room. Oh no. Like
Oh,
I
that's
think
so
his
good.
character was so ridiculous that it dispelled so much disbelief. But you're right. You're right. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what him and Betty are cooking, but anyway.
Yeah.
Love that 31 to 32, 33. Like that whole storyline was so cool. I love that. Because honestly, I had no idea, like they didn't show their hand too often or too early to where we knew about it before the characters did. Like we were learning at the same time Norm did.
Yeah.
And I love that.
I literally had no idea what to expect, what was going to be in 31. I was like, are they just going to
Yeah.
be a completely different set of people and they're just like controlling? Or I had no idea it was going to be that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was almost wondering if the 31 was literally like, okay, this is what I actually thought. I thought each vault was literally clones of each other, and there were three
Oh.
three groups of the same exact people, like just doing their thing. And then like I don't know, they were just like trading people. I don't know. That's what I thought was happening.
It totally could have been what could have happened. That like sounds like a Fallout vault for sure. I'm excited because obviously we've kind of alluded to this. We haven't officially said it, but it looks like the second season is going to New Vegas, which I am stoked about. Which New Vegas is where a lot of the New Republic of California, the NCR, which is kind of like the people they were going to. They were the people that were in the observatory that fought against the Brotherhood of Steel, got defeated. But the NCR was like a huge faction at the Hoover Dam in New Vegas. They fought against like these cannibals, like sadists called the Legion. Like they were just like really bad people, just like crucified people in the streets and stuff. So like the NCR were kind of like the lawful good character faction group in Fallout New Vegas. So it was really awesome to see kind of like them showing the flag in Vault 4, and then the Fallout 3 music happens in the background. I was like, let's
Oh.
go. I'm ready. I'm going to boot this up. I'm going to have a good time. Like this, it was really, really cool to see. But to see the strip is still there. Fallout New Vegas is happening. I am so excited. So excited for it.
I thought
I just want to say I'm excited for Death Claws.
Yeah.
What's Death Claws?
So basically, they are... So that big skull at the end of episode 8, where he's like walking through the Mojave Desert and like there's this huge skull. It has horns and like really big fangs. So that's a skull of a Deathclaw. And it's basically like the most dangerous creature outside of like humans. Because they were experimented on and they were utilized by the army, or they were trying to breed this type of animal to work like hand to hand front lines of their armies. And then it turned really bad, and then they realized they couldn't contain them, and so then they bred outside, and they were just crazy everywhere. The fun thing about Fallout New Vegas, where you started, you can see the strip, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go towards the strip. You go there, there's this huge canyon, and in that canyon is just Deathclaws everywhere. Like, it is... You can go through there, but they're wicked fast. They will catch you, and if they catch you, they're gonna like one hit kill you. Like, they are so strong. So it kind of like forced you to go all the way around the desert to get to the strip. So I think with a bigger budget, season 2, Amazon's going to be putting in some CGI. We're going to get some super mutants and get some Deathclaws up in here, and it's going to be fantastic.
Wait, how did Alex know about the Deathclaws?
That was one of those like few things I was aware of. It's kind of like the power armor, right? Where it's like, oh, the fact that we had the Brotherhood in this was kind of, I feel like, the justification to have the iconic power armor, right? Like the helmet and everything. Yeah. And I'm like, and the only time we really got to see it in use was when, you know, Knight Titus was basically getting his ass handed to him by the radioactive bear.
Yeah.
And I'm like, power armor is supposed to be more impressive than this. Is like, why is this the only time we see it in actual use?
Maximus did use it in Philly though, and it was pretty funny to watch him try to use it.
That's true, when he like didn't really know how to pilot it, and then or Cooper, like, since he wore those suits, like knew exactly how to deactivate it,
kill people in it.
But yeah, so I'm excited to see like the power armor like facing a Deathclaw. Like, that's one of those things where I'm like, when you think about, especially for me in games, you know, the iconic enemies usually come into play. It's not just like you, the player character, but like what do you have to engage with, and like the Deathclaw being like, oh yeah, this is the apex predator, like this is what you need like your mini nuke or your power armor to like handle. It's like, I'm excited to like see that come to fruition. And obviously, like, you wouldn't put the skull there if it wasn't going to appear, right? Like, that would be such an inappropriate.
That's crazy though.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, me neither.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Well, no, I was just gonna say that I thought that the New Republic of California's like flag was so funny. The like two-headed
bear on there.
Yeah, the mutant bear. What are they called, Matt? Like, they have like a Chinese name.
It's something with a Y.
Yeah, it's like a Yiguan or something. I don't know. Like that, I thought that was kind of fun too. That I literally, like, when I heard people on the internet call the bear something, I was like, that's like an Asian name. And hearing what the lore behind it was kind of cool.
Yao Guai.
A Yao Guai. Yeah, they were calling it Yao Guais, and I was like, what the hell? But I wanted to kind of, just to take a step back before we go back into New Vegas, I wanted to ask you guys, did you know the ghoul in Moldover's observatory, did you know that would be her mom? I literally was like, is that her mom? Like,
oh, no, I didn't.
When they started...
Must have been dumb. Like, I was like...
I didn't really like that personally. It didn't seem necessary.
Didn't like it either. Okay, number one, I was like, why is... First of all, this ghoul is full-on ghoulified. She's the ghoulest of ghouls at this dinner table.
She's full ghoul.
She went full
ghoul.
Like
craniotomy.
She's a ghoul. And why is she at the dinner table? Like, what has she been there for 10 years? Like, what's going? Like,
it seems that way for some reason.
That's bizarre to me. But number two, so like that was a big red flag. Like, just seeing this ghoul hang out and like be chained there. I'm like, what is she, your freaking jester or something? And then she's like, they're like divulging the secrets of the past, and then literally I was like, is that her mom? And the fact that it was her mom made me upset. Like, I was like, this woman was supposedly your friend, maybe your lesbian lover, I don't know, I can't tell, but you keep her chained to...
Yeah, it was a very odd decision.
Yeah, instead of like putting her out of her misery. Like, what are we dealing with here? What kind of madness is going on? Like, that was weird. So like the last bit was a lot to handle in terms of like plot realizations and stuff. But then seeing Hank go to New Vegas, which I was like, is he in Seattle? Like when he showed up.
That's the first thing I thought, but I was like, wait, there's no water, so it can't be.
Well, I mean, but Yasser, what if it just all evaporated?
No, we
into
saw
nothingness?
the water in California when she left the vault.
Santa Monica
first
Pier.
episode. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Ocean's still there.
Okay.
But I did think
But
that
up
too.
north,
and then
that water.
Yeah, is gone. Pacific Northwest never saw rain again in 2077.
I honestly didn't know what it was until the end credits where it said like "Welcome to Vegas." Oh, that's Vegas. Okay, got it.
Yeah, Alex was actually present when I was watching the last episode, so he was like, "New Vegas," and I was like, "Oh, okay," because I was like, "Is this Seattle?"
Yeah. I'm. So
I feel like they only added that goal there just so that she can shoot her at the end to like mark the next step of her chapter, the next chapter of her life, and that was like pretty much it. But I agree with you; it seemed out of place.
Yeah, the whole like drama of like her pulling out a gun and Cooper's like has his back to her, and it's like, oh, what person thinks that she's going to shoot him? Right?
Yeah.
Like she's obviously going to shoot the other ghoul, and it's like bang. And it's like, oh wow, we all caught it. Good job, everybody. Like, it was so strange. Yeah, I'm totally with you. All right, New Vegas. Reason I'm really, really excited. I think the Masters of the Minds, like the Monopoly that was happening back in the day.
Okay.
Vault Tech, talking to M&T, talking to Robco, talking to all these other people, West Tech, like all these people that you find, bits and pieces. You literally find like Robco Lab building. You go in there, you scope it out. You kind of see what Robco was like right at the very end. What you find out in New Vegas, the main villain of New Vegas, or main antagonist, is called Mr. House. He is kind of like the house always wins. There's a casino theme there. He owns the casino, and you go up to him and you actually see that it's the mind of the leader of Robco. So the guy with the mustache.
Another brain?
Yeah, so basically he transformed his mind into AI. So that's how he survived all this time. And so I'm like, is Mr. House still a thing? Because I was like, wow, that actor looks just like him. Like they put some effort there, and I think he did really, really well in that scene. Like I think he owned that scene compared to some of the other people completely throw away. I doubt we'll ever see them ever again. Mm-hmm. But that Robco guy, I was like, that's a face all that Fallout fans recognize.
Oh.
Like,
didn't they like make a joke about a casino and like losing money in a casino?
Exactly.
As well?
Yeah. I was like, which I thought that was throwaway until the very end, and I was like, oh nope, that's foreshadowing. Got it. This is great. So I'm just excited to kind of see what happens, because we know now that Coop knows that his wife is willing to drop literal nukes on America, which was crazy. I love how he's like, yeah, give him, voice of reason. And then she's like, we're going to drop the bombs. High fives, everybody.
That was well done, though. Like where
so
like
crazy.
he completely lost it, and like you couldn't hear the person talking to him because he was so like shocked from that scene. That was pretty good.
Shell shocked.
Literal shell shocked. Going from that to him kind of participating in birthday parties, because obviously he's no longer an actor. He's talking about like being divorced. So like he probably confronts her in the second season, and I'm just excited to see kind of like what else happened before the drop, or after the bombs dropped. Like what happened to Robco, what happened to Vault Tech, like what happened with all these things getting placed into it. I'm just over the moon excited for season 2. Can't wait.
I'm just like also really perplexed about like, we want to make money for our investors. I'm like, what kind of world are you going to freaking live in when nukes are dropped and you're living in a vault? Like, this is where I'm like, I'm glad, I'm really hoping, or, it's fiction. So obviously I have to suspend disbelief. But I'm like, in what, are they going to convince me that this would make sense? Because that doesn't make any sense at all. Like the desperation.
Well, I guess the argument here is what you saw in that last episode, where no matter what, humans are just going to keep going to war with each other. And that's where they were at that point in time, where just you could tell that war was inevitable. And so why not just nuke everything and then we can restart again, because we're in such a bad place in America or in human history right now. It's a weird take, I agree, but I think that's what they were coming from.
Okay.
The really weird thing is pre-war money, which like you'll find like dollar bills and they just like call it pre-war money. It's like worth nothing like after the bombs have dropped. So it's like they're getting all this pre-war money that's literally not even going to be the currency. Like they use bottle caps, which I also find hilarious.
Yeah.
Like when they literally just like pull out of their shoe like 17 bottle caps, and I'm like, that's what it probably would look like. Yeah, like this is not a really efficient currency at all.
Yeah.
But it's like they're selling basically the whole world for money that's not even the currency. So it's like, yeah, none of this makes sense at all. At all.
I also like
power is
how
power.
one of the triggers for Coop with the whole like something's not right here is when like he can't bring his dog into the vault. Like that was like literally the first kernel of like
that's some commie shit right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I fought in a war for that dog. Yeah. Right? Like,
yeah.
Oh, so good.
It's impeaching on my freedoms.
Yeah. And that like he has dog meat and now he has a little dog companion that just like warms my heart.
Yeah.
I love it.
I did like that.
I'm happy with where they set up all these storylines in a way to where I'm excited to see where they go from here. Like I don't think there's one storyline where I'm like, like even Maximus, I think it ended well. Like I think it ended in a way where I'm interested to kind of see this Palpatine Skywalker relationship going forward.
I agree.
I also think I'm curious if Moldaver is actually dead because she did awesome and it feels like a waste. Like I feel like there's more to happen as far as, you know, flashbacks and seeing kind of what she does with this information and how is she still even alive? Like they haven't even talked about any of those things. So I feel like there's something else there. There's something missing. I hope we keep her somehow. Which I don't know if I want to spoil my theories, but I don't know.
Let's hear it. We're already in spoiler territory.
All right, we might as well. In Fallout 4, one of the big things, you know, this is in Boston, there's actually like a movement to kind of disallow AI and robots to exist, like to have personalities, to have lives. They're called synths. So basically like people could, in theory, upload their brain, their personality into a robot or into an AI and then live forever. And people like started to have relationships with synths. And so it actually started like this underground railroad. And so like one of the biggest factions in the Commonwealth was called the Railroad. And it was almost like kind of like the Underground Railroad for slavery, where they would move synths to kind of like a place where they would not get killed and not get put into become slaves and things like that. And so I'm almost positive, like, what if she's actually a synth? Like, it could be like fake blood, which is like what they would do back in Fallout 4. So like they would do that to make sure that you wouldn't know that they're actually a robot. And what if she's actually alive and she, you know, reveals herself to be kind of basically this robot? Like, this is why I survived for 200 years. Like, it makes sense kind of how Coop has survived. But like,
that would throw me off.
What about her? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, because nothing in the show made it seem like they had a technology that advanced where you could have a human-looking robot. I've never seen it. Nothing in the show makes it seem like that is accessible in this world.
Like, it's either going to be that or cryotherapy. And I guess since they've already introduced it, maybe that's the route that they go. I don't know.
I agree with you that it would be a missed opportunity if they just completely killed her off like that. I do think the more likely situation in my mind is that they're going to just keep her on for season 2 as like the flashback person and not have her be part of the world. She does seem dead to me. I don't think she's coming back personally. But I think you could keep her to kind of help explain the story between when the nukes dropped and what happened with where we are now.
And I'd prefer that because I liked how kind of, you know, laissez-faire the show was with its characters, right? It's like at any moment someone could just die. You know, it's that type of thing. You're besides the main characters, like, who are for the most part going to remain in the story, there's like, you're not really beholden to say we need this character because they're important for a specific purpose. It's like once they fulfilled their purpose, boom, they're gonna, you know, be shot dead or blown up or something. And I like loved how it progressed, because that's also a reflection of the world, right? It's like Fallout seems like it's a very vicious place. You know, there's nothing that's like really sacred about it. It's like at any given moment you're gonna step on like a random like landmine or like a rad roach is gonna come out and eat your face off, you know, that type of thing, where it's like no one's like on this like holy pedestal of like I have plot armor, haha, that type of thing.
Yeah, those rad roaches make me appreciate them more in the games. In the games, it's like, these are so annoying. Like, you got to shoot the ground, and they're so small. But like, seeing them in this game, I'm like, that is now a new nightmare material. Like,
yeah,
it's your like, small dog.
I'd rather any other sort of death than to get eaten alive by a rad roach.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts? I guess we kind of have to say if we recommend this, right? Like, it's kind of our whole thing.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I'll start off. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, but I recommend this. Whether you're a gamer or not, I just think it's a good show. Good story moments. I think the story is great. I think the characters are really, really fun. And I'm excited for season 2. And I think it's already been approved for season 2. And I'm sure Amazon is going to pump in a bunch of money. I think it's the second best Amazon show besides Ring of Power. So it's like, it's money. They're just printing off money over there.
I second the motion. I recommend it. And I don't even plan on playing the games, but I thought it was good storytelling. And I had a good time.
Yeah, I agree. I don't, it's not good enough, or I'm not in the space where it convinced me to play the games, but I love this world. I love this story so much. You know, I recommend it just for that fact, right? Like, I feel like you can get enough enjoyment out of this without having to go to the games. But if you do really enjoy it, and I think this has a lot to offer for this world, that there are the games available to you if you want to go experience those. So I think it works on a lot of different fronts in that way.
Yeah, yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that, Alex, because I agree that with everyone else that I totally recommend this show. It's a great show. But also, I think this is a really interesting point for Bethesda and just like Fallout as a franchise in general, because I think a lot of people are going to be interested in playing the games now. We've seen that since the show released. And I've seen like streams of people playing Fallout 3, for example, with a bunch of mods, and it's been fun. So I was like, oh, should I play it? And we do have rumors of remasters coming up. So I think we're going to see a lot more Fallout in the next couple of years. And it's going to be interesting to see like how much Bethesda kind of turns up the Fallout production, because from what we heard, they were kind of focused on Starfield and then the next Elder Scrolls. But I think they might sneak in some Fallout now because they realize that's an important property for them. So who knows? Maybe Obsidian can help with some of that. Wink, wink.
Ooh, that'd be amazing. I downloaded the next gen update for Fallout 4 on PS5. So another reason that I will push off Rebirth. Another week, I guess.
Are you still not done with Rebirth?
I'm kind of 100%ing everything. So right now I'm in the midst of chocobo racing, and it is like eating away at my soul. So
that's a podcast thing to do, though. You know, catch up on this podcast.
It's been a perfect, like, puppy is playing on the floor right under me. I've got my portal, and then like if he starts like acting a fool or about to like pee all over the house, I can just set the portal down, pick up the dog. Like that is what I'm doing right now. That like is my life.
Aiming it at the pee pad.
All right, everybody, go check out the Fallout TV show. 4 for 4 recommended experience. You should definitely check it out. Check out some of our other podcasts too. We talked a little bit about, dual protagonists or multiple protagonists. That definitely we hit on a little bit about our initial thoughts on Fallout. So definitely check that out. But like always, like, subscribe, check all those boxes, click wherever you need to, comment. Shout out to Grandmaster Doug for the tunes, and we will see you next time.